Is St. Peter really buried in the Vatican? Hey there, history buffs and late-night rabbit hole dwellers. Ever found yourself awake at 2 a.m., neck-deep in ancient conspiracies, forgotten relics? Or wondering what's actually buried under that giant dome in Rome? Today, we're digging, literally and figuratively, into a mystery that's been under the surface for almost 2,000 years. Is St. Peter, the guy Jesus called the Rock of the Church, really buried under the Vatican? Or are we just standing on centuries of tradition and a few artistic flourishes? Because who doesn't want to talk about ancient bones under one of the world's most famous churches? The grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica? So imagine you're in Vatican City, looking up at the massive dome of St. Peter's Basilica. It's beautiful, it's iconic. It's also kind of screaming, "I'm important." Construction started in 1506 during the time of Pope Julius II, a pope so extra he commissioned Michelangelo like he was hiring a contractor. It took over a century to finish and involved architectural legends like Bramante, Michelangelo, and Bernini. It's basically the Renaissance in church form. But beneath all that gold, marble, and grandeur, that's where things get interesting. Tradition says this is the burial site of St. Peter himself. According to early Christian accounts, Peter was crucified upside down around 64 AD during Nero's delightful little persecution of Christians. Peter, ever the humble guy, requested the upside-down bit because he didn't feel worthy to die like Jesus. After his death, legend says he was buried nearby, right around where the Basilica stands now. Early Christians believed Peter was the first pope, personally appointed by Jesus. That belief turned into tradition, and that tradition eventually built a basilica on top of what people believed to be his grave. But is there any actual proof he's down there? Or are we just layering gold leaf on top of a really old rumor?
2,000 years in the making, close to St. Peter's Basilica, a discovery that traces back to ancient Rome and early Christianity. In a church closed for 35 years, what may be bone fragments of St. Peter himself, unearthed by a worker and shown on Italian TV, perhaps placed here by an early pope to assert his authority at a time of division within Catholicism. St. Peter was one of Jesus' 12 apostles. His spirit, Catholics believe, now guards the gates of heaven. His body entombed at St. Peter's Basilica, one of Christianity's holiest shrines.
The 20th century excavations. Jump to the 1940s. World War II is raging, but the Vatican, they're digging, literally. Pope Pius XII greenlights a full-on archaeological excavation beneath the basilica. The goal? Find Peter's tomb. No pressure, right? What they uncovered was wild. An ancient necropolis, a Roman city of the dead, with mausoleums, inscriptions, and early Christian graffiti. Basically, a VIP burial lounge for ancient Romans. At the center was something called the Trophy of Gaius, a small monument mentioned by a Christian writer in the 2nd century as marking Peter's grave. So naturally, archaeologists got excited. Then came the big news. In the 1960s, Pope Paul VI announced that bones found near the shrine were, in his words, convincingly identified as St. Peter's. Cue headlines, gasps, and debates in every history and theology department. But here's the plot twist. The bones weren't found in the tomb itself, but in a nearby niche in a wall. They weren't a complete skeleton, just fragments. And the feet? Missing. Some say that makes sense. If Peter was crucified upside down, the feet might have been removed to get him off the cross. Others say, yeah, that could just be 2,000 years of grave disturbance and weird bone relocation.
And beneath the grottos, there is the deepest and most ancient layer, the excavated section of the necropolis. The dimly lit corridors are flanked by well-preserved tombs, some adorned with faded frescoes and carvings. Latin inscriptions and Christian symbols mark the transition from pagan to early Christian burials. The feeling of walking here is similar to walking in the streets of the ancient city of Pompeii. They call it the Trophy of Gaius because it was described by an early Christian writer in the 2nd century called Gaius of Rome. Near this small shrine was found a wall with ancient graffiti made by early pilgrims. Among these, there is one that reads Petrosemi, the contracted form of the Greek Petrosenesti. Peter is in here. The small shrine has a niche where archaeologists found the bones of a man, aged 60 to 70, wrapped in a purple and gold cloth. a mark of high reverence dated to the 1st century. Traces of soil on the bones suggest that they were originally buried directly in the ground. These are believed to be the bones of St. Peter.
A surprising discovery in Trastevere. Fast forward to 2017. A quiet little church in the Roman neighborhood of Trastevere, Santa Maria in Capella, is getting some renovation work. Nothing fancy, just fixing up an old altar, until workers stumble on clay pots labeled with the names of early popes, including Peter. Now, this church isn't just some random chapel. It has links to Pope Urban II. Yep, the one who kicked off the First Crusade. Could the bones have been secretly moved in the Middle Ages for safekeeping? Or are these just relics meant to be shared, like spiritual souvenir tokens? Historians started buzzing. Was this the real Peter? A backup Peter? Or just another case of medieval mix-and-match sainthood? It's the kind of twist that would make Dan Brown rub his hands together in delight.
The Mass at which they were displayed for the first time marked the end of the Year of the Faith. One reason they were kept hidden for so long is an ongoing debate over whether or not the bones really are St. Peter's. Scientific tests conducted on the 9 bone fragments, now resting in a jewel box inside a bronze case, showed only that they belonged to a robust man who died in his 60s. No pope has definitively declared that they do belong to St. Peter, but in 1968, Pope Paul VI said they had been identified in a way we believe to be convincing. The man considered to be the first pope was crucified in the year 64 AD on the site where the Basilica built in his name now stands.
The Vatican's stance. So how does the Vatican handle all this? Very diplomatically. They acknowledged the discoveries but didn't leap to any grand conclusions. Smart move. Verifying 2,000-year-old bones isn't exactly a walk in the park. Carbon dating? Sure, but it's easily messed up by contamination. DNA testing? You'd need a sample from Peter's great-great-grandniece. Isotope analysis? It can tell you where someone ate their fish, but not whether they founded a global religion. And honestly, for the Church, this isn't just a science thing. Peter's tomb is a spiritual cornerstone, literally and metaphorically. As Pope Francis put it, sometimes faith doesn't need absolute proof. So yeah, archaeologists still push for more tests, but the Vatican? They're opting for reverence and mystery over microscopes. The quest for Bethsaida. Let's rewind. Before Peter was the rock, he was just a fisherman from Bethsaida, casting nets on the Sea of Galilee. For years, no one could find Bethsaida. Like, it just disappeared from the map. Classic ancient town behavior. But recently, archaeologists found a site near the Jordan River Delta, El Araj, where they uncovered Byzantine church ruins, coins, and inscriptions. All signs point to this being Peter's real hometown. It's a nice reminder that before the papal stuff, Peter was a dude with a day job, a temper, and probably sunburns. His journey from Galilean fisherman to spiritual giant is what gives this whole story real weight.
A new find at an archaeological site called El Araj has stirred speculation that this is Bethsaida's true location. Why is this maybe Bethsaida?
Because as we look at this site, it actually has first century remains that indicate a settlement here. We found hundreds of lead weights that go with nets that indicate that there was a substantial fishing industry at this place.
Okay.
And here, we're right on the water.
Yes, the Sea of Galilee is lapping against this site. This is the first time the world has seen this in 1,400 years.
Yep. Amazing, isn't it?
Huh. It's unreal.
So, is Peter under the Vatican? Maybe. Is he under a church in Trastevere? Also maybe. Could he be in a third spot we haven't found yet? Yep, that too. But maybe the real story isn't about where his bones ended up. It's about the legacy he left behind. Peter wasn't perfect. He doubted. He sank. He even denied knowing Jesus 3 times. But he also came back stronger and helped build the early church. That kind of story hits home, no matter where you stand on the belief spectrum. It's not just history, it's human. Why this mystery still matters. Now you might ask, why are we so obsessed with where one guy's bones are buried? Simple, because it's not just about bones. It's about identity, legacy, and connection. For the Catholic Church, Peter's tomb is a link, connecting popes today with the earliest days of Christianity. It's a thread tying billions of people back to one man's faith. For historians, it's a peek into ancient Roman life and early Christianity. For skeptics, it's a fun challenge. Can we separate fact from fiction using science? And for tourists and pilgrims, it's just emotional to stand where millions have stood, whisper a prayer, or just look around and think, whoa, this is where it all began. Even if we never get 100% confirmation, the search itself says something about us. We're wired to dig, question, wonder, and keep asking, what's the story behind this? So, is St. Peter really buried in the Vatican? The evidence? Fascinating. The proof? Still fuzzy. But the impact of his life? Unmistakable. Thanks for tagging along on this deep dive through time and tombs. If you enjoyed this, give that like button a little love, subscribe for more ancient mysteries, and drop your wild theories in the comments. Where do you think Peter's bones ended up? Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop digging.